Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint podcast number 340, recorded live Monday, June 5th, 2017. I am your host and impeccably dressed this afternoon, Todd Klindt. And as part of my community service thing for something I was wrongly accused of, I have to let this guy tag along. So, Shane, tell him about yourself.
Hello, my name is Shane Young. I'm the guy who just heard himself flexing, so I was going to do a nice opening, stint, but I'm a little sore right now, so I'm gonna have to give the mic back to Todd.
Yeah, and thank God it wasn't your mouse and arm, because that could have been disastrous. So bringing that up, I got a massage this weekend, and the masseur is asking about trouble areas. I'm like, I ran a race yesterday. My legs are kind of tired, and then I got a shoulder thing. And he's like, oh, what's wrong with your shoulder? I'm like, I'm a computer nerd. The old mouse and arm gets a hell of a workout during the week. And when you put that kind of pressure on, human body just wasn't made for that.
Did he entertain you in any bit, or did he just kind of go, okay, got it?
Yeah, he knew that if he wanted a good tip, he had to pretend that he was amused by my antics. But no, the mouse and arm is good now. Thanks for asking. I think you should probably get something done with yours too.
I mean, clearly, well, and I mean, I've got all that YouTube money, right, just to throw around, so I can go to the masseuse and be like, look, I got $4 for your tip. What
Are you still stuck at $4 a day?
I am. I got close to $5, and I stopped, and so that's why I put out a new video today that we'll talk about in a minute, so that I'm trying to get to that $5 mark so I can.
That's big money.
But no, so speaking of that, so this weekend it was Luke's birthday, right? So Luke is my now 5-year-old.
Oh, they grew up so fast.
They do. And so we got a birthday card. He opens it up. There's money in there, right? He's got a big pile of presents, bunch of kids standing around. He pulls the money out, and I swear to you, that kid, who I have no idea where, he just went straight up, look, Mommy! And we were like dying laughing and mortified all at the same time. Like, A, I mean, his form was impeccable, but B,
clearly not his first time.
Yeah. Why is my 5-year-old knowing how to make it rain? So then we had to talk about the scuba, right, which is make it hail. Scuba is always too cheap to use dollars, so he throws nickels, makes it hail. It turns out they don't like that, so.
Who could have known? Oh, goodness. All right. Yeah, so what's like Ohio Department of Human Services? I mean, who am I supposed to call about this?
I forget. I mean, I know what one you call for the dog, but no one really cares about kids around here. So if I abuse Chewy, I think you're allowed to call, but the kids.
Right. Good enough. If you want to contact either of us, I'm Todd at toddklindt.com, or you can go to toddklindt.com. All over on the web, I'm Todd Klindt on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all those crazy places. How can the folks get a hold of you?
Hey, at Shane's Cows on Twitter, right? Which is interesting because a lot of dairy farms follow me these days. There apparently is running through the industry. Someone must have wrote a blog post in their industry, and so they follow people with cow in their name. So I bet you in the last month I've had 100 dairy farms follow me. I'm like, what do you do? So then also the bold zebras stuff. So if cows aren't your thing, maybe zebras are your thing. Or there's always the YouTube channel, Shane Young Cloud, where I make spectacular videos that make me all the dollars.
Oh, goodness. So we have a friend in the SharePoint community, Tiffany, and her handle is Tiffany WI, last name, stuff and all that. She gets a ton of followers because they think she's in Wisconsin. And I think she was also, honestly, entered into some like Wisconsin businesswoman contest or something. She lives in New Orleans, which is nowhere near Wisconsin. But, yeah.
Well, it reminds me also, remember we had a friend who in the SharePoint industry who shares the name with a adult film star. And so she also gets some weird tweets from time to time.
Yes. Yeah.
It's been a while since we've heard any of those stories, but.
Yeah, it has been. On to production notes, because you got a hard stop. Yep. So we're hosting this on my machine this week. We tried 2 weeks ago on 339. We did it on Shane's machine and found some difficulties with the video. So we decided if we were going to have difficulties with videos anywhere, we'd just do it on my machine again. So we're trying that. We did not get to spend 45 minutes troubleshooting audio problems. I really missed that. That's a time for you and I to bond, and
I know.
Do that this week.
All the small talk. Now these people are going to have to listen to small talk in the recording because we didn't get the pre-small talk.
Yep. So we're still looking at that, and we got to think about that later in the show also. And then, like I said, there was no podcast last week because it was Memorial Day, and we take Memorial Day off to do Memorial Day things. Did you do anything fancy for Memorial Day?
I didn't. I chased some kids around. I ate hot dogs on the grill a couple days in a row. Played at the pool. Nothing too exciting. I don't know. What about you? Anything better than that?
A little bit. I had a little bit of fun. Did regular Memorial Day stuff, which whatever that is. And then I went down. So I've got this car. I don't know if I've mentioned it before. 1977 black and gold Trans Am, just like the one from Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh yeah.
It's come up before. One of the sports anchor at one of the new news stations down in Des Moines is a big fan of Smokey and the Bandit. And so a friend of mine kind of connected the two, and I went down Memorial Day on Sunday night and filmed a bit with them for them to use on one of their shows. And the bit got used last night on their show. So that was kind of fun. So I'll paste the link in the chat room, and it'll be in the show notes. But basically, this guy, Keith Murphy, one of the sports guys, reproduced one of the scenes in Smokey and the Bandit where the bandit's running from Smokey and he hides behind a building, and then the bandit goes by, and then he kind of looks at the camera and he gives a smirk, and then he tears off. So Keith did that in my car. They always do these funny intros to the sports show when they do it, and so that and then the entire episode is littered with Smokey and the Bandit references. So they do like a top 5 list every week about different things, and so this was Keith talking about his top 5 favorite bands, and one of them was YouTube. Or not YouTube. And I can't remember, but number 1 was The Bandit, because you can't spell bandit without band. And that was his favorite band, the one in Bandit.
This show sounds terrible, by the way.
It's what we do for entertainment here in Iowa. And then there were some outtakes. And when you watch the video, he's obviously in the thing, but I am his stunt double because I tear off in the car and spin, burn some rubber. Not as good as I would have liked. The place that we filmed it kind of had a little gate, so I didn't want to hit that. But that was a good time. So stunt double is absolutely going on my resume. Because
So were you in the actual production at all, or were you only the hidden face?
So I wasn't at the beginning in the intro that they did. I was just the stunt double. You could see me from behind. But then at the end, they played some of the outtakes. So I'm on camera for some of that. And that's the second link there in YouTube where they do that.
Man, well, go update your IMDb right now. You're a character on a Disney show. You're a sports anchor, stunt double, and you're a internet celebrity on this wonderful show. I mean, your life is complete.
I keep telling everybody I'm a big deal. And the other funny thing about this was, if you guys remember, like 6 years ago, I forget when it was, my car was on another news channel in Des Moines for a bit. So now of the 3 news channels in Des Moines, I've been on 2. So I need to get hold of that third one and get the entire triumvirate of me and my car.
I'm sorry, is it over?
I'm still talking about me. Sometimes when I talk about me, you... but that's how I spent my Memorial Day weekend. So that was a lot of fun doing all that.
No, that's pretty cool, actually. You continue your TV career, and your car continues its TV career, so that's more important. Exactly.
So you did mention earlier that you put another video out today. Would you like to tell the folks about the video?
Oh, yes. Well,
very controversial from what I understand.
Oh, it is the most controversial. And I never realized how controversial it was. Like, I knew it was bad. So talking about Right-Host, right? I made a whole video on how to use Right-Host and what you're going to do with it. And I'd always heard mumblings that I was a bad person for using it. But as research for doing this video, I actually went and read some of the posts, where Don Jones refers to Right-Host killing puppies, and I forget who else, Snover, right? He like regrets putting it in the product. I mean, there's a lot of ugly things to be said about Right-Host on the internet. So I made a video about how great it was.
Always somebody that wants to just see the world burn, and that's Shane.
Yeah, well, I also knew that, and I'm hoping that Jeff Hicks still hasn't watched it, right? Because I think he's going to die a little on the inside when he watches it. I tried to take it from the standpoint of like, all right, it's evil, it's bad, but here's where I use it and how you can use it. And then I showed him the things it couldn't do. And then I kind of ran through things like right error, right warning, right debug, right output. So kind of just hit some of those different ways you might do some of the same stuff. Then, so I'm talking to Jeff about thinking he'd be all nice and proud of me. And he's like, well, did you cover right progress? And I'm like, that's not a thing. Never heard of right progress.
Did they add that this morning? Is that new?
So I literally thought I was being rickrolled. So I went and typed it in. Write progress is a thing. It's not my video apparently, but it is a thing in PowerShell. So.
Yeah, and I would like to add that I've been part of the chorus of people who have mocked you openly for using right host. And I really only did that because I was also mocked openly for using right host. So it's kind of a hazing thing.
Yeah. Well, and also, so I point out, like, so I said Don Jones points out that, every time you do it, it kills a puppy. I was like, well, my household, we love dogs, we hate cats. So in my house, we kill kittens. I didn't even think about it, right? I'm doing editing. And I'm like, oh, look, there's a snippet of me saying I kill kittens on the internet. So now people can, that won't come back to harm me one day in the future, I'm certain.
If you ever run for office, that will come up.
Yes.
That your illegal house workers and the fact that you kill kittens, that will absolutely come up.
Yeah. Well, the other thing it reminded me of, right? So being afraid those guys were going to rickroll me. So I used to be a handy guy. Then I became a computer nerd, and I kind of just left all my handiness in the past. But on our fancy new car up there, right, the brake light went out. I was like, all right, I'm pretty manly still. I can replace a brake light. So, strolled into AutoZone, wearing my fancy golf clothes because I had to go play golf afterwards. Get the book out, find the bulb, find it on the shelf, just the same way I did back in the 90s when I used to actually work on cars. Mm-hmm. I take it to the counter. I wait 20 minutes because the one guy whose whole day is just to go to AutoZone and talk to the cashier is just, taking his time. And so the guy goes to ring me out finally, and he's like, hey, I see you got a bulb there. You need to get some of this bulb grease to put on it. Like, really? Are you sure this isn't like blinker fluid or the muffler bearing that needs replaced?
Muffler belts.
He was for real, though. He really wanted me to pay like $2 to buy some bulb grease to go on my bulb so that it would last longer and not corrode. I'm like, well, sir, my car's a lease, and it goes back in like a month, so I really just need this so I don't get pulled over after I have a beer on the way back from golf. Mm-hmm. He really wanted to sell me some bulb grease, and I was really kind of upset by that.
Yeah, I replaced a bulb, a taillight in my parents' car here a month or so ago, and it took about 5 times longer than I thought it was going to be. There was just all kinds of, went and made things all complicated.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and then the chat room was currently making fun of me for using right host again, so good times.
The thing that works well for us, Jeff Hicks has become a regular in the chat room, and I'm honored by that. I can only assume it's some kind of self-flagellation thing where he's punishing himself for something. There's really no other explanation. But yeah, he's giving you the what for and keeping you honest, so that's good.
Yeah, but I do feel bad for old Dave Aykroyd, right? Because Dave used to be the resident make fun of Shane's poor PowerShell, and now it's Jeff. And so
there's enough of your bad PowerShell to go around, though. There's enough for both of them.
That is valid. No, so I will point out, I talk about in the video as well, right? The main reason that I use right host so much is because really the only time I remember PowerShelling is to teach, right? So I'm trying to say, hey, here's a commandlet, you're writing, you're doing some stuff, and you need to kind of see that going on, right? I don't write a lot of scripts that are being automated in places like that where right host would be a bad idea. I literally just need to put some text on the screen to do my solution. So I tried to call that out in the video, make sure that people understand the context where I feel like right host is used, because that's all I'm trying to do, show you what's going on.
Yeah, and so do you want to spend like 30 seconds? We've been talking about how bad it is, but not why it's bad. Do you want to give like the elevator pitch on why right host is worse than right output or something else?
Sure. So the biggest reason that right host is a crime is because it doesn't produce an object, right? It doesn't have any output. It just writes text literally to the host, to the screen. So you say, hey, Shane is cool, which is what the video is all about. But you do right host, it literally just puts it on the screen. So you can't use it with a pipe. You can't use it with a variable, right? You can't output it to a file. It literally just puts the text on the screen. Whereas everything else inside of PowerShell, except for this one stinking commandlet, works in the context of an object. So like what Jeff will tell me a lot of times, right, is he'll say, hey, you should be using right output, because the nice thing about right output is it creates output, right? It puts it in the stream, and we know that if text is the last thing in the stream when the commandlets are done, then it just writes that to the screen. So it would have the same effect. So then I always go back with, well, I can't do pretty colors, right? Because
Yep.
Yeah, write host is the one thing in PowerShell where you can go in and say, I want to have a foreground color of black and a text color of cyan, and have this nice, beautiful interface created.
Yeah, that's so for me. I agree with everybody completely. I agree with Jeff Hicks that you're a terrible PowerSheller and all that. But yeah, write host. It's only really decent for two things. Yeah, just prototyping, just quick and dirty, getting stuff out to the screen, and then if you want some color. And Jeff mentions in the chat room, like most things, you need to fully understand on a deep level how things work before you can or should bend the rules. And that's exactly right. So you and I use write host, and I think we kind of understand why it's a bad thing, but we would never tell people to use it.
Right, and that's the key, right? So what I ended up actually showing is I used as an opportunity to teach them about T-object. So I was like, hey, here's how you, write to the screen and then write to a log file at the same time and use, T-object. So I did actually, I started it out in this happy place of write host is the greatest, and then I just kind of kept working it into, in reality, use this, in reality, do this. And, like I said, like everyone said, I'm going to get berated for it, but I use it a lot, so I thought I'd cover it.
Yeah, it's good to educate the folks on it. So yeah, check that out. That's on YouTube. What's your YouTube channel again?
Shane Young Cloud.
Gotcha.
Because they make naming stuff on YouTube hard as well.
They do. Oh my God. All right. So what else you been doing today? Been polluting PowerShell and making people dumb. What else?
Yeah, I've also been playing with Power BI. I finally we had a customer who finally did their contract on that. So I've been building dashboards with Power BI, which is actually kind of cool. I'm kind of digging on it. It's been a little interesting. I guess one of the fun things with Power BI as well is, right, so if you're just going to do Power BI based on some data, it's real easy. But they want to do it using SharePoint lists as the data. So they want their power users or their not so power users to go in, edit and enter data in a SharePoint list, and then have it spit out these giant reports with all these bar graphs, line graphs, upside down graphs, KPIs, things like that. And so there's been a lot of just little problems I've kind of had to solve. One of the interesting things with Power BI is it really doesn't have a traditional red light, green light, yellow light type of solution. Like, how'd you guys miss that?
That seems like KPI 101.
It does, but it is not there. So to do something like that off like a SharePoint list data. All right, so I got my SharePoint list data. So they enter like a number of like how satisfied their customers are, right? So 87. So then based on the 87, I then create a calculated column assigning it a value of 1, 2, or 3, depending on where 87 falls in my ranges. Yep. Then have to have a different table where you set up 1, 2, and 3 as the data, and then you use a image URL to connect the dots. So you say a 1 equals this URL.
Right.
So then you got to go and create the keys between the two tables. Then you can make a table view web part, I guess, inside of inside of the Power BI dashboard. They're not web parts, but whatever you call those little guys. And then you can just show those columns, and then you can take that, publish that to Power BI, then add the SharePoint web part, and then connect that in, and bammo whammo, you have a red light, green light, yellow, in like 47 easy steps.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds, if I was going to guess, that's exactly what I would guess how you do that. That makes perfect sense. Somebody torturing your dog there?
Yes, yep. I asked for quiet for 30 minutes a day, and this is the loudest 30 minutes of the day in my house.
Yeah, maybe we should tell them that we moved the podcast up an hour.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Yep.
All right, so that's it. That's my fun. What else you got?
Well, so as we've been talking about ways we're screwing the podcast up, I feel like we kind of got things okay here. Sound is good. Video is good. My video is clear. Yours is jerky and choppy and just looks bad, but honestly, I'd pay extra for that. Mm-hmm. But then we both got this sad email from Microsoft last week saying the beloved version of Skype that we're using, the desktop version, is going bye-bye, and they're going to force us to use the new Metro E version. Or UWP or whatever the hell they're calling it. I'm
just going to cry a little. I don't even want to talk about it. It was literally, I logged in, was that like Wednesday morning last week? I logged in 30 seconds away to send me an email. Hey, dummy, you just logged in the old version. That's going away. I cried.
Yep. Yep, and so the reason that's important is because XSplit, the software that we're using to put this whole mess together, the way we bring remote people in is there's a Skype plugin. And so we're just not sure how it's going to work with the new version of Skype, new Skype app. So it could go either, could go a couple of different ways. But yes, very sad. Very sad.
We'll be back to Google Hangouts in a couple weeks, and sorry guys.
Stick Cam. I wonder if those guys are still around. We'll see what those guys are up to.
What was the one like Chad Johnson used? Was it Ustream or whatever? There you go.
That was the second one. So I started out on Stick Cam, and then Ustream, and then Google Hangouts. Yep.
Now, one day we're gonna get some professional equipment in here. We're gonna have like a live studio, hardwire between us. Copper ran from here to Iowa.
Wherever that is, whichever direction that.
I think nope. That way, in the little north. So you're probably over that way.
You have no idea where you're pointing.
No, because my house sits perfectly north and south, so it's pretty easy.
So south is to your right, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So
south
north,
is to my right. That's amazing. We're facing
west.
The same direction.
Right. So you live that way, not probably point that way.
I'm waving. I'm looking that way.
There you go, folks. There's some unvaluable content in the show. Moving on.
All right. So there's we didn't get time for this to get it in the notes, but there was one of the online password places. I think OneLogin was breached last week. And again, search this up on your own. We didn't get this in the notes in time, but one of the common online password management tools got breached because of some bad keys. Don't know enough to really talk about it right now. But Shane and I talk about this all the time, how these days you have to have, some kind of password management scheme because everything you log into online should have a different username and a different password, and there's just no way to keep track of all that without some kind of tool, LastPass or OneLogin or something like that. But all of these places, LastPass, KeepPass, they keep having little hacks here and there, little compromises, and I just don't know. I'm not sure where we're going. The bad guys are getting badder.
Yeah, well, that's So someone literally asked me yesterday, which is weird because yesterday's a Sunday, but she was asking me, like, hey, I started a new job. They don't do a very good job of password management. Can you kind of tell me what I should be using? And I said, well, I still use one off of SourceForge, right? That is just a little crappy, only runs on my computer, has no connections anywhere, and it's the same tech that I've been using for almost 20 years now. Like, I feel good about it though, because I kind of feel like it's not going anywhere. But I did tell her if I was going to start over, I probably would embrace something like LastPass, but I haven't had an impetus of change, so I've just kind of stayed with this little thing that runs on my computer.
Yeah, and we should not be talking about the security stuff on Internet Show. But for the most part, I use Google Chrome, can sync all that stuff, so that does all of my my web passwords. And then I use a piece of management software for remote desktop stuff called Remote Desktop Manager from Devolutions, and that has a password management piece built into that. And those are the things that I use. And I've had good luck, and again, but I follow that principle. Every single place that I log into has a different username and a different password. So if anybody gets breached anywhere, neither the username nor the password are valid anywhere else. Hopefully it'll be okay.
That's still one of those things I fight with my wife with this day, right? Is she has like one password that she likes to use for about 2/3 of her stuff. So I was like, fine, for the credit card in the bank, you have to have a real password, honey, that cannot have any of these letters or words in it. The rest of them,
and I feel bad for normal people, because it's so onerous. But and we kind of bring that up, number one, to take a look at that and see if you're impacted by that. And number two, on the heels of that, today the Microsoft security folks posted a blog post on the 3 basic security hygiene tips from the identity team, and so basically it's just stuff you can do to help prevent or reduce your risk for things like this. The steps are easy. Read the blog post. It'll be in the show notes. But the steps are basically ensure that you and all your users are using multi-factor auth everywhere you can. And if you're an IT pro and you're running Office 365 or Azure AD or something for your company, make sure you know how to check for risky logins, the ones that have bad passwords, things like that. And number 3, make sure you understand the tool that your password program uses that lets you see compromised accounts, things like that. And that's just good stuff. If you're doing those things, if you're using multi-factor auth, that'll go a long way. I told the story a month or so ago how when I was at a buddy's house and helping him mount a TV on the wall, my phone was blowing up because somebody's trying to hack into my Hotmail account. But I got multi-factor auth turned on, so they couldn't get in. And I kept getting the text that, put this in, we'll text you a thing. So I wasn't too worried. I went back, afterwards, changed everything, all that. But if you do those 3 things, enable multi-factor auth wherever you can. Make sure you can tell how to evaluate your passwords and then look for risky logins.
Yeah. No, and all this reminds me, so last week we did that security webinar, and one of the interesting things I think both of us didn't know, but the research report that they cited, what was it? It was like 266 days was the average amount of time someone was compromised before they found out. Yeah,
a business. So a business was breached an average of 266 days before they realized they'd been breached.
That was, we were just both like dumbfounded. Like, goodness, that's a long time.
Yeah,
By my Kentucky math, that was like, I forget what it was.
And just think, for every time somebody catches it immediately, there's somebody who's been breached for a year and a half and has no idea.
Yeah. Also sounds like Wednesdays is a bad day. So if you're looking for a day to turn off your router, it sounds like Wednesdays is the most likely to get hacked today.
Yep, that was, yeah. So, interesting stuff. You got it. And again, you and I get questions all the time about what does the IT pro job look like in 5 years. This is part of it. This is one of those things. You got to know all this.
Absolutely.
Speaking of that, I noticed a couple of weeks ago, Microsoft had a blog post about how the Azure AD admin console had gone GA. This came out a month ago, and then you and I both are on different betas and all that, so I think we were already using it. But this is for Azure AD itself, not necessarily the thing that you see with Office 365, but if you actually go and enable Azure AD and manage it on that end, you can see it there. But again, more surfacing of data to help you see if you've been hacked, who's done what, so go check that out if you haven't already.
Yeah, and all of the Azure portal interfaces these days, right, I'm really satisfied with them, right? I don't have a lot of complaints, and it turns out that half the time what I'm using is like a preview version. So when it goes GA, I'm like, what happened? But I don't realize that the thing I've been using for months was, I don't know, they've done the Azure team, they've done a stellar job. I don't know, just kudos to those guys all the way around.
Yeah, they've definitely gotten their stuff together. Yeah,
there was definitely a black eye when they went from the service manager stuff to the resource manager stuff, right? That was some shady periods, but now that we've gotten to the resource management stuff across the board, it just works, and it's laid out the way you expect, and it's usable. And I don't know, the SharePoint team needs to borrow some of those usability engineers some days. It's been pretty good.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Okay, coming down, so you got to take off in a minute. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about a new thing that I've been playing with.
Your obsession? Go ahead. Your obsession?
No. It's such a strong word. I don't get it. OneDrive has been again, as admins come up and talk to us about what their job's going to be like in 5 years, things like OneDrive are part of it. Hybrid is part of it. It's all part of that whole thing. And the OneDrive team, talking about another team at Microsoft that's been killing it. The OneDrive team has been killing it. I've talked about that a bunch in the past. And recently, they've just been dropping all kinds of features. The problem becomes that OneDrive, well, there are many OneDrives. And so when you see these headlines about OneDrive does this, OneDrive does that, OneDrive supports this, it's not entirely clear which flavor of OneDrive it is. Is it OneDrive Consumer, or OneDrive for Pleasure, as we affectionately refer to it? Is it OneDrive for Business? And if it's OneDrive for Business, is it OneDrive for Business on-prem, or is it OneDrive for Business Office 365? Because even though some of them share different clients, like the next-gen sync client is OneDrive Consumer and OneDrive for Business Online, but not yet OneDrive for Business on-prem, it gets very confusing to keep track of. And so I remember like 2 months ago, I was talking to some folks in the OneDrive product team about this, because they were saying OneDrive does X, and I'm like, which OneDrive? And they're like, OneDrive. It's just that clear. It's OneDrive. I'm like, it's not clear. Is it OneDrive Consumer? Is it OneDrive for Business? Well, it's OneDrive for Business, obviously. I'm like, great. Is it OneDrive for Business online or on-prem? He's like, oh, only online. Yeah, only online. I'm like... And so I was talking to the guy, and I'm like, you guys need to be more clear about this message. And he's like, I get it. But if we have to say that big mouthful, OneDrive for Business online, every place we reference this, we just can't do it. I kind of get that. But I looked at that. I'm like, here's a gap. Here's an opportunity. So about a month ago or so, I registered the domain, whichonedrive.com. And that forwards you to a wiki page on my blog where I've started listing the different announcements that the OneDrive team makes about what things OneDrive can do, and then there's a table that tells you which OneDrive actually does that. And it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. I've got big smiley faces for the versions that do support stuff and frowny faces for the ones that don't. But just so that you have a fighting chance when some product comes out or some feature comes out, and you're like, which OneDrive does that? Whichonedrive.com.
I'm looking at your work here, and I won't tell you that your smiley faces are misaligned. You're missing a date there. But you did a good job, Todd.
Yeah. So the one that's missing the date is the placeholders thing that we talked about.
Yep.
And that comes out in the new version of Windows 10. So we don't have a date for that yet.
Fair enough.
But yeah, tried to figure everything out as to which, what information you need. If there's a client that you need for that, I've tried to get links for that. I've tried to get links to the page that Microsoft talks about it. Those kind of things. I also needed an icon for if I didn't know whether it supported or not. So that's the little meh, because I just don't know. I haven't looked yet. So if you've got any suggestions on how I can, not you, because you suck, but I don't care what you think. But if any of the listeners have any suggestions on what I can do to, functionality I can add to that page or features that I don't have on there, hit me up, toddklindt.com, @ToddKlindt on Twitter, things like that.
No, that's pretty awesome. So, I would start pushing you to try and expand a little bit and try and explain kind of what is OneDrive, right? What is OneDrive for consumer? What is OneDrive for X and Y? And kind of have the rest of the educational story. The things you love to talk about.
I thought about that. So do you think it should be on that page? There should be a link to it somewhere? Okay, so you nod your head. I thought about that too. It would have to be below the graph, because if people go to the graph and there's too much text at the top, they'll zone out. So it'd have to be below the table. And I'm happy to do it.
Well, and hopefully, this is a great idea, right? I hate to give you credit because it's not what I do here.
You do. You really do. You really, really do.
But I look at this and I'm like, well, we can get you a Wix site for about $14 a month. Actually, you'll build a whole website around this and, kind of have a proper fancy experience for.
Gussy it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Put some lipstick on that pig.
Yeah, you made a couple of those YouTube videos you've been threatening to make for 6 months, and
I have been threatening to make some YouTube videos. That is true story. Put
those out here, right, and kind of start to. I think it's a great name you came up with. Once again, I hate complimenting you. Someone assumed Joe came up with it. And this is a good idea. I pat you on the head.
Yeah, I need to put some of the new features out there. But again, you can go to whichonedrive.com. That pops you to the blog post. I also got the Twitter handle @whichonedrive, and so you can subscribe to that. And then as I add updates to this page, I'll tweet those out.
Pretty cool.
All right. So last couple of minutes, we've got. Unless you're done, or if you're not done, tell me what a great job I did. We can spend a couple more minutes on that.
So you misspelled a word, right? No.
That's all Lori's fault. She was my tech editor for that page. So shameless self-promotion. In like 2 weeks, I'm going to be going over to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, or actually Haarlem in the Netherlands, and speaking at Office 365 Engage. If you haven't signed up for that yet, shame on you. But then the good thing is you can go to office365engage.com and register for that. I think if you use my last name, KLINDT, you get $50 off or something. I forget what that is. But sign up for that. I'm going to be doing sessions on Azure Active Directory and PowerShell with Office 365. Great stuff. Standing room only. I'm sure.
And I'm still lobbying the Trump administration to make sure the laws change while you're over there so you can't come back.
That could go either way. Honestly, that's a fair bet. So it could happen. It could happen. Then next month in July, I'm doing a remote session with the St. Louis SharePoint user group, and I'm doing it on OneDrive, so I need to put some stuff together for that about just what OneDrive is and what OneDrive means, and then, if you're using OneDrive in your organization, how to responsibly use it, what makes sense up there, how to, audit it and things like that. September 6th through the 9th, I'll be speaking at the SharePoint Exchange Forum, and this is Joran Huisman's baby in Stockholm, except this year we're going from Stockholm, and then we're taking a cruise across the body of water whose name I have forgotten, to mainland Europe to stop in Tallinn, I believe, and then taking that back. So good times there. Love that yearly trip to Sweden. And then a couple weeks after that, Microsoft Ignite. Orlando, Florida, September 25th through the 29th.
Man, there's a lot coming up. I mean, especially because if you think about how much travel you've got to do all that, it makes me exhausted just looking at it. I'm glad I'm not having to do it all.
You're going to get me stuck in Europe. You have many opportunities to get me stuck in Europe, because I think I've got another one in there that I haven't put in. So yeah, many chances for you to hit that right at the right time when I'm out of the country, not back in.
Yeah, but I feel bad for Jill, so I'm kind of torn.
She could do better. So
that's true. She can go down there and find her a guy from one of those houses that's got that 5 meg internet and be like, hey.
Yep. All right, I got you out 5 minutes early. Thanks, everybody. I'll stick around the chat room for a little bit. Shane's got a skedaddle. So yeah, we'll see you next week. Everything's looking good for 341B next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Doodles.